In this video, I show my process behind making these 4 kitchen utensils. This is a fun project to upgrade your kitchen, utilize that piece of scrap wood you've been hanging on to, or just practice making something a little out of the ordinary. I start my process with these 4 templates. You can see here that the 2 pieces of scrap I'm using are quite different in size. You need a minimum of 12 inches long, 4 inches wide, and a ½ inch thick. With that in mind, we'll go ahead and mark the material and, yeah, that's better. Mark your material, get a nice pencil line on there or a Sharpie line. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then you can cut off any excess length that you have. I do this at the miter saw. I'm cutting the figured maple there, and then I'm going to cut this walnut. Once I have the excess material removed, I head over to the bandsaw. You could use a scroll saw, jigsaw, handsaw, or an axe like traditional wood carvers do. Remember, I'm just showing you the way I use. However you choose to do this, you need to get your rough shape so you can start creating your contours that actually make the utensils. You can see here that I have my shape cut out and it's still way thicker than ½ inch. That means that this piece will yield more than one blank. When I have thicker stock, I like to cut out the shape first, and then I go back and resaw into ½ inch pieces. It just saves me a little bit of time. Now this is a great time to mention that I'd like to cut close to my pencil line, as close as possible, but I don't want to cut any of that off. That's really useful to me as I go forward in the carving. Now I raise up the guard, bring over the fence, and I actually utilize my template, which is a ½ inch thick, and that makes sure that my pieces are all ½ inch thick. I end up getting 3 pieces out of each of these, which is nice because I went to the work to cut out that shape real nice and leave my pencil line, and then all I have to do is resaw them, and I get multiple out of each one. As soon as I wrap up on the bandsaw, I laid everything out and just took a look. I selected 4 of these, 1 of each style, to move forward. And now we get to make some dust. This is my angle grinder with the Kutzall disc, and man, does this thing eat through some wood. And therefore, there's my dust mask, because I'm going to make a lot of dust. The first thing I'm going to carve is this walnut spoon, and so I need to do some concave and some convex cuts. I'm going to start just really gently establishing a perimeter here, and I don't want to make it to the edge. I can establish that edge a little nicer later, and it's good. As precise as you can get with this Kutzall disc is great, but you don't want to hit that edge. That'll mess everything up. I flip and I do the back, and I just want to keep everything consistent, and I don't want to take any deep gouges into this thing. You can see on the back that I leave a flat surface there. That kind of shows me the contrast between the round and the flat, shows me if I'm doing everything evenly. Now I'm just going to hit all the sharp edges with the Kutzall too, because I want this handle to be something like round later on. It's just easy to knock down those edges with this really aggressive tool. Now you can see I hit that handle first, and I just rotate around and around and around until it is nice and it feels nice. Then I'm going to slow this video down to normal time so you can see how I establish an edge here on the bottom, and I work my way right around. Now I'm looking for the bottom to almost meet the top, but I want to leave probably about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch up top all the way around, and I want that to be consistent, so I'm very careful here not to over sand. Once you're done on the belt sander, you should have something that looks pretty darn close to what you want at the end. You need a nice round handle, and you want your bottom of the spoon to look pretty good. Now I wanted to show a scraper here as well, because that's a very different process than doing a spoon. On this, you need to make angles, and so you lightly press into the belt, and you make each angle as you go, and you kind of make sure that they meet up nicely. So you just keep looking in between sanding, and you really don't want to over sand. I mean, that's the story with the Kutzall, that's with the belt sander too. And it's worth mentioning here that I use an 80 grit belt first, and then I use 120 grit to clean those up. Now here is the next tool, and you might laugh because this is the tool that you could carve from scratch. I mean, from your blank, you carve with this thing, and there are people way more skilled with this than I am that can do that. Now, it just takes me forever, and I don't have a stock of green wood to carve with, so I use it to take off my burn marks from the Kutzall. And again, I think it's super cool hand carving, and I wish I was better at it. So that's something down the road. But for now, this tool helps me remove the burn marks before my hand sanding. And with hand sanding, I'm just going to show you kind of a quick summary of it. I'm going to start with 150 grit because I did the 120 grit on the belt sander. And I'm just going to hit all the surfaces on the spoons. The top especially just needs a lot of sanding, so you can just go over that quite a bit. You can see on the back here, I still have my flat surface, and I'm really going to take that mostly away so that it just all blends. But it's still going to be there so that the spoon sits nice on a countertop. Here I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and this is a problem area that probably is either from the Kutzall or from the 80 grit belt. And so I've got 150 grit here, and I'm working pretty hard to get rid of that. Now this shot is just to show the detail. You can see that lip that runs all the way around this spoon. That is what I want to leave when I'm carving. I don't want to hit from the bottom. I don't want to hit the actual top, and I think that is easier to see here than it was earlier. Now you can also see where I'm sanding is off to the right. That's nice and round, where the left is what comes off the belt sander. So there's the difference, and that's kind of what I'm looking to achieve. Granted, I do a lot more sanding after I stop filming here. A little rule with all sanding is if it seems like it's taking a painfully long amount of time, you might need to change your sandpaper or take a step back and use a coarser grit. Now, you can see here, this is one more method I use. That's the orbital sander. I like to use that on the flatter objects, so the spatula and the scraper. And I believe this is one of the only areas that you can break the golden rule of turning the orbital sander onto its edge and pushing. Because you're using 150 grit, you're going to work your way through 180, 220, and 320, and some people even further. And so you're fine. You can do that. Now I'm going to water pop all of these. This is a step that is necessary for items that are going to see water. Because when water hits wood, if it hasn't been water popped, you can get this grain raise, and you'll see it right here, hopefully. It's kind of hard to shoot that close, but you can see those little bumps, and that's after the water pop and letting it dry. You have these bumps that need to be sanded off. So I just move to 220 after this. I water pop after 180, and then I come in lightly with 220 sandpaper, and I just knock down anywhere that the grain raised up. Now I'll sand with 220. If the grain raised a lot, I'll water pop again and then sand with 320. You can see these are the finished products before oiling. So here's my spatula. Here is the corner spoon. And I do a right and a left corner spoon, so this one is the right. Next up is the scraper. I love these for getting into peanut butter jars, or I even scramble eggs with these. They're nice. They're little and narrow, and they have a long handle. They work out great. And there's your classic spoon in walnut. Very nice. Ready for oil. Now let's get on with the oil. What am I still doing holding this thing? Yep, there's the oil. And I put too much oil on that spoon, so there we go. Spread it out. Oil all the utensils on both sides, and then the stuff I'm using is walrus oil, and that requires a 12-hour dry time. So I'm going to set these aside for 12 hours, but magically in the video, we're just going to pop right back in, and I'll be wiping them down. And so I wipe off any excess oil with the blue shop towel here. You can also use paper towel if that's around. It sometimes leaves some fuzzies, but I find that it works pretty much just as good. And there they are. And I could be done at this point. I could be done, but I like adding this wood wax on top of the oil. I think it just adds an additional sheen to them that makes them look really good when a customer first gets them or when you first set them in your kitchen. And it's the same process putting that on and taking it off. Besides, you only need to wait like 20 minutes with the wood wax. So To me, it's a really good step to take to make these kind of look even better. And oh boy, there's the finished set, sitting in the snow of all places. And if you're not tired of hearing me talk, then good for you, but I'm going to stop talking now until the very end slide, so enjoy looking at these. Okay, I only gave you like a couple seconds, but thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Later.